Hi, everybody.
Video and audio check. And you hear me now. Everything working really plausibly.
Oh, I just got a notice
What? Just got a notice, huh?
from a live stream.
There's a live stream, huh? Wow. Not competition. Uh. Alrighty, David. Oh. So we'll just do a little bit of chatting here while we're waiting for everyone to queue up. And first of all, Eva's doing okay from the last surgery. She had more fun again recovering from the anesthesia. Pretty loopy for a day or two. But doing okay now. And she's a little self-conscious about her row of little staples in her neck there. I think it looks just perfect for Halloween, but for some reason she's self-conscious. And so that took more time out of our thing. The gentleman with the mind down and hey, honey bunny, Sarah already here? There she is. Yep. So anyhow, they'd really like to get something operational on the sulfide, basically the below gold line concentrates. And we have plausible leach solution already in the Eco Gold X. So the question was, is there any reason we can't just go to a resin and pulp type recovery using Eco Gold X? And the oh really, Sarah, how you doing? Everything going okay? Yeah, maintenance is getting ridiculous, honey bunny. So anyhow, the manufacturer of the Eco Gold X seemed to think that it was highly plausible that it would be fairly straightforward. Now, of course, I never believe anything is straightforward until proven otherwise. And therefore, I started doing some testing, and we got, yeah, they're getting much better at the pain control, Sarah. You know? Um, so I started doing some testing. I posted the video yesterday, and it showed what I knew. Something now, visual changes in the resin are not necessarily diagnostic, but here's an example. These are both the Max Water 104133 resin. Okay. This one is thoroughly loaded from our mill locally here. This is the 104133 resin tested in that beaker I did the other day. Okay. Now, can't tell anything for sure, but you can sure see a difference, you know? So, the solution from that test is at the lab now. And could be, honey bunny. So I put a rush on that, and I hopefully will have answers by tomorrow evening as to how much gold did I start with and how much gold did I end up with in solution. It's entirely possible that resin worked just fine, but wasn't terribly noticeable. The spot tests were solid dark, but is that diagnostic? I don't know. I can't be sure. So, as I say, always double check everything. Right now, we're double checking that to see. But I took a sample beforehand, and I took a sample at the end of the 4 different resin extraction attempts. The resin we've been using, the Max Water 10433, has been highly reliable, and we were not using any kind of a pre-treatment, although we were also not able to regenerate it effectively. And so it might be it would do better with such a thing, or maybe it's just the regeneration step was not exactly right. Again, it was one of those things we kind of set off to the side there. As you notice from the video, I've got 4 cartridges sitting over here all loaded, and so I got loads of resin to play with. I may very well have some stripped resin sitting next door too. So I got loads to play with this winter. Now that we're all pretty much here, yeah, 6:02. For those who are not terribly familiar with the subject, I'll do a quick review and then get into a little more detail. Hard rock gold is almost always has a sufficiently large percentage that's real small or bound to the rock or whatever, that the recovery using physical techniques like a gravity separation, amalgamation, whatever, are usually not terribly effective. 50% or so. Okay. And as such, you're throwing away a lot of gold unless you do something else. And that something else was found to be, 100 years ago, leaching. Okay. I believe they started out with chlorine leaching and rapidly changed over to cyanide leaching. And little one, switch to the board, please. Legible?
Yeah. Sure.
Anyhow, with leaching, you do a chemical separation, not a physical separation. This means that real small gold is actually better as long as your leaching solution can get to it because it can dissolve it quicker. And because of various physics and chemistry reasons, it's a good complement. Whatever gravity or floats well probably doesn't need leaching, but the leaching will do the stuff that doesn't gravity or float well. So by using both, you can usually get a pretty good recovery. In leaching, you start with gold in ore, and then you take the gold out of the rock and put it in solution. Okay, sounds fairly straightforward. It can get kind of complicated at times. Okay, yep, symbiotic, exactly, or synergistic almost. But anyhow, the problem is once you've got this combination of relatively barren rock and gold in solution, how the heck do you get the gold? Now, the first thing that you have to do in, kind of like what Brian is doing there, temporary Temptor sent. Well, I don't recall seeing you before, Temptor. Good evening. So, What Brian's trying to do is physically separate the solution from the solid pulp left after grinding the rock and leaching it. Now, this works, but as Brian will tell you, it can be really annoying at times, especially the residual moisture in the pulp becomes a problem. Okay? And it creates this complicated mess of filtration, settling, rinsing, blah, 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 blah. Well, years ago, to get the gold out of solution, they used to use activated charcoal. And then somebody figured out, well, do you really have to get the liquid away from the rock before you use the activated charcoal? And the answer was no. It is not necessary. It has different positives and negatives, but it can definitely work. The carbon can work in a dirty solution as well as it does in a clean solution, not as good. Yes, diluting and decanting will work, but there's something that in many cases can be more effective. Now, you will sometimes see these acronyms: CIP, CIL, RIP, and RIL. Okay? CIP stands for carbon in pulp. Somebody for you.
Hi, everybody.
And that means after you've leached the gold out of the rock, instead of doing a solid liquid separation, you throw the carbon in there and let it absorb the gold directly out of the slurry. Okay? Carbon in leach means you put the carbon in before it is already dissolved. That has a certain advantage in terms of it brings the gold concentration down in the solution some, which tends to drive the equilibrium and dissolve the gold from the rock a little bit faster. It also means you don't have to hold the carbon in the pulp for, if you're taking 24 hours to leach and you took 24 hours to transfer the gold from the slurry to the carbon, you could now maybe do the whole thing in 36 hours because you're doing two things at once. Okay? It has certain advantages. RIP and RIL are the same process but using an ion exchange resin. Ion exchange resins have the advantage over carbon in that you can engineer them to do particular things better than others, And so you have these, I don't know how many resins there are out there. My guess is hundreds of them. Okay? Because whenever someone has a kind of a unique chemical situation they want to accomplish, and there isn't a resin for it, if it's valuable enough, then the resin engineers play their little magic and try and come up with something. The most common application for an ion exchange resin is something called a water softener. Nowadays, we have these reverse osmosis units, but in the day, they used to have something called a water softener, and it was a container of ion exchange resin that you rinsed it with salt, kicked off all the calcium ions, then you ran the water through and it grabbed all the calcium ions. Okay? And because of that, it became very popular at the time. Reverse osmosis is a little bit better, but they didn't have it back then. Now, when it comes to the resin and pulp, now that I've done the basics here, let me show what we're planning on doing here. And yeah. Now, the first thing is this can be done before or after a concentration step. So take ore and crush and grind. Okay. And from here, you got lots of choices. Currently, down there, Central America, you have separation paper. Okay. Creates gold concentrate, which then melted to doré. It creates a tailing, which is currently just stockpiled. Now, they just brought me some samples, sent me some samples, and I've got samples of the tailings that tomorrow is going to be shipped off to Hittle for analysis. And it's hard to tell how much is in the tailing. We've had samples in the past that assayed like 1/10 of an ounce per ton, which, considering it's already crushed, it's already cruising, as a slurry, there's ways you potentially scavenge some sulfides and some gold that might work out pretty easily. We're working on that too. The other thing that comes from this process is a heavy concentrate. This is heavy minerals, some gold, primarily sulfides that we can see. So I usually call it the sulfide con. Okay. Now, it's not a pure sulfide concentrate. It has a fair amount of gold associated with the sulfides. So that adds certain complexity to the chemistry. The question is, can we take these heavy concentrates, minus the gold line, and leach them and get the gold out of them? Because these things are running about 5 ounces a ton. Unfortunately, it's only about 100 pounds a day. However, multiply that out, and now let's see. 5 divided by 1,000. 5 times 100. Okay, 1/4 of an ounce a day. Current prices, $1,000 a day. That's a significant amount of cash, especially when you're paying people $16 a day labor. Okay, so this is the current question, plus the scavenging, which would tend to put more material here. In the long run, you could potentially take all of this, leach everything, but the capital costs are going to be high, and you're going to have to completely redo your system, which means you're going to have a lot of shutdown time. Not practical right now. Okay, so this was decided to be not only next, but also now. Okay, they wanted to make it happen as soon as possible, which is fine with me. I got no problem with that basic concept. But now I have the challenge of testing everything and determining reasonably effective parameters. I need to know each time. Grind size. Pre-treatment, if any.
You've got all kinds of comments from
Yeah, I don't think any of them really had to say they're talking to each other.
Okay.
Pre-treatment could be roasting or chemical. Resin, contact, time. Resin, loading. In other words, how much gold is going to be in how much resin. So how much resin do we have to use? How much resin do we have to process? Resin, term is elution. I'll call it strip. What chemical and physical constraints do we need here? You got all of this stuff here that I have to determine with some level of precision. Okay? We don't need to guess. We need to have, well, actually, we need not to guess. So I've been doing some of these tests here already. Got some of that out of the way. Grind size, change that as needed right now. Not applicable to the current situation. Because we can do it at the current grind size. Better. They have a small ball mill there. So we can use that to grind 100 pounds at a whack to a finer grind if needed. Pain in the butt. But roasting, we don't have any way to do that at that level at this time. We could get something to do that. Right now, it'd be simpler to use chemical oxidation if possible. How long do these things take? How long do we need to bleach it? How long does the resin have to be in there? Do we want resin and pulp, resin and bleach? Probably resin and bleach. How much resin is it going to take? It says 10% max. Or less. Okay. Under ideal conditions, you can get about 10% gold in there. Nothing is ever ideal. What's the chemistry and the temperature required for stripping? Some stripping systems use elevated pressures and temperatures. Okay. The Eco Goldex at 105 C. Carbon, 60 C for resin. Okay? And they have a resin that they use and a particular formula where they're just using the Eco Goldex to strip it. Okay? Now we've already been doing basically this, but in columns where we bleach it, dump it out on a pad that gives us a clear solution, and we run it through filter can. And here is such a filter canister. Way back here. Okay. And it's just a standard water filter canister that's reloadable. Basically empty when it comes from the factory. And we just put the resin in it. Okay. Put 4 of them in a row. Works out pretty well. Or at least it has for us in the past. So, Now we're dealing with something different. How do you separate the resin from the pulp? Actually pretty simple. Out at the mill we do not have a tightly classified ground ore. Down in Central America they do. They get a ball mill with 100 mesh output, so it's 100 mesh minus pulp. Okay? And apply this one well. Another one here. Yep. There we go. Another one. Let's see. You can watch this. The microscope. Now, the resin just going everywhere. I'm going to use a watch glass. I'm going to take some of this other end. Now, this is smaller than the resin would be because this has been dried. Let me see. This is a little pen microscope, which has a reticle in it. So I can actually physically measure the size of those beads. Our smallest one are about 0.016 inches, 15,000 inches smallest. The average sizes are almost 30,000. So take my little chart. I should have somewhere size chart. There. So 0.015 inches is about 40 mesh. Okay. So if we have 100 mesh pulp that we're leaching, then 40 mesh plus resin, all we need is 60 mesh screen. If we take these two and throw it on top of that screen, the resin comes off the top, the pulp goes through the screen, and wow, you got a really good separation. Because you had the resin in the slurry, the gold is basically, theoretically, in the resin, no longer in the thing. So all the leach solution you lose with the pulp is not containing gold. Basically, you're going to lose water and chemicals, so you can recover that as much as it makes sense to do so. Okay? And that is one of the big advantages of resin in pulp, is that your solution losses to the pulp aren't terribly important. Okay? So that's important. Go ahead and look back to me, little one. So that's the concept of why resin in pulp is basically, theoretically, a very simple method. Now, I got to figure out all the chemistry and stuff. But you also have to have a screen when you have your pulp originally generated as it comes off the table. You need to make sure you don't have any significant amount of oversize, which may not be a problem at all. Don't know. That's what you test. If you don't have a problem, you don't need to screen it first. Okay? Then you go ahead and just, if you need to regrind it smaller in order to get better recovery, which was the recommendation from manufacturer, from Eco Goldex, and it makes perfect sense. You could take your sulfide cons, put them in the little mini ball mill, which can easily handle 100 pounds a day. Grind it for a certain period of time. Have to determine what that is. I'm guessing, since it's a batch process, throw it in there, run it for a couple hours. You're probably well under 200 minutes. Okay. Then either transfer the slurry to, say, a small cement mixer, or physically pull the balls out of the ball mill and just use that as an agitation device. Throw in your resin beads and run it for an additional who knows how much time, at which point the amount that you're happy with has transferred from the pulp into the resin beads. Now you're ready to just run it over the screen, dispose of the pulp, recover the solution that you can, dispose of the rest of the pulp, and now take the resin beads to the stripping process. And we do have a stripping process that we have been using on these. Okay. It's a 60 degrees centigrade acid thiourea solution. The recommendation from the manufacturer as to how to recover the gold from the stripping solution, I'm not real happy with, because they recommend using the Eco Goldex O product as the stripping solution, along with extra hydroxide. Not too sure. Then they go and wind up destroying the Eco Goldex, I presume, in order to get better conductivity. I'd rather do other stuff. Yeah, it has to be mechanically stable. When it's surrounded by 100 mesh rock particles, it's not too bad. Carbon is worse. Carbon tends to grind up worse than resin. That's one of the negatives to it. It also can't be engineered to be selective depending upon the solution and the other ions in it. But I really don't like destroying the Eco Goldex solution just to turn it into an acid thing to do something else to it. Primarily because create hydrogen cyanide gas, which is bad juju. Okay? So I prefer not to. If I'm going to do anything, I'll just go ahead and, strip it with the acid thiourea solution. When we pour the acid thiourea solution on there, does it effervesce? Seems to me there was some effervescence there, wasn't there? Yeah, hard to tell exactly what that, because there's going to be hydroxide.
Going to be all kinds.
There could be carbonates. We could have been generating hydrogen cyanide to some extent. I don't know. But anyhow, so once we put this in our stripper, we wind up electroplating the solution. Another thing that works well is that with that particular solution, hey Red Wing, we have found that by just putting a copper strip in the solution, we can tell whether or not it has a substantial amount of gold or not. We can monitor the process quite easily just by putting strips of gold into the stream during the process. When we get to where we can't see any gold plating on the copper in 5 minutes, it's pretty much done. Okay? So that's a very handy thing too. And we may very well go to that for this. I mean, it's something we've been doing. The negative is that we have not been able to successfully regenerate this. In theory, you should be able to take this resin, get the gold off it, clean the resin back up again, get rid of other stuff that it's got stuck to it, and turn it back to pretty effective resin again. And you should be able to do that multiple times. So far, we have not found out how, but it's not hugely important in terms of, did we ever figure out how much we were actually stripping from there? I know we thought we had significant residual. Did we smelt some of the old stuff and get any
when
numbers?
I smelted the old stuff, I got numbers that showed there was like one half of, and there was like very minuscule.
Okay, so we got it pretty clean from gold. Okay.
We're talking less than one.
Okay. So according to Eva's memory, when we fire assayed the resin, and that's why we have some dry loaded resin here, that it indicated we had gotten well over 95% recovery from the resin. Okay. As such, it's like, okay, if we can't reuse the resin, it's not critical. This stuff costs $10 a pound, roughly. Okay. And it holds, getting about 5% loading factor.
Yeah.
Okay. So 22.7. So we're getting 2/3 of an ounce per pound of resin, which is what, $2,500 for a $10 resin? Okay, if we can only use it once, I'm not going to whine. Okay. We just kept all our old resin in case we do something with it someday. Never throw anything away that might be useful if you can avoid it. But that's basically how we've been doing it. And assuming that the chemistry from the ore down in Central America is reasonably compatible, there's no reason we couldn't be able to do this down there. Don't assume anything. I'm testing all this. Let's say the first test went a little sideways on me. Not sure exactly what's going on, so I need to run it past a lab and see for sure. In the meanwhile, what I'm doing now is running some tests on how to dissolve the gold from the rock most efficiently using the Eco Gold X. And again, I'm getting some kind of unusual observations here. First of all, one was quite unexpected. As I was running these tests, I was winding up with negative oxidation reduction potential. I'm like, what the heck? I was always getting positive before, or almost always getting positive. So I checked a few things, and one thing I did was like, okay, let me take this O series reagent, the Eco Gold X, and the S series Eco Gold X, and just make blank solution, 0.1% Eco Gold X solution with each of them, and measure things. And the pH looked about right, and the total dissolved solids looked reasonable, but the oxidation reduction potential was about a negative 120 or something. What the hell? I thought we have to go positive. Do you guys still have my phone number? Paul, I might, but I can't tell for sure without going into the computer and looking over that. if you've got my email, don't you? So, you want to just resend your phone number? I kind of think I've got it, but I'm not sure. Okay, you know my email, correct? So anyhow, I was trying to produce, this was testing, but also I needed more solution to run more resin tests on. So I got 5 bottle rolls going right now. 4 of them were the sulfide cons. One was just roasted sulfide con. Okay. My email is hard rock you at outlook.com. Okay. So if you just send me your contact information to there, I can get in contact with you. Okay. So I was running 1 kilogram bottle rolls. I got 4 of those going. I got a ½ kilogram bottle roll of the roasted because that's all I had. And I was getting these negative oxidation reduction potentials. What the hell? What's going on here? So 2 of them, because I was using 2 bottles with the O series product and 2 bottles with the S series product. So I said, okay, well, I'll just take 1 of each of those and throw some OxyClean in there, see what happens. And it didn't seem to do nearly what I expected. But after the thing tonight, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take samples from all of the stuff that I've been running and haul them to the lab first thing in the morning. No problem. So then I'll be able to tell what I got. The solution should be running between 150 and 250 parts per million. They're 1-to-1 solutions, and the roasted shrinks a little bit when you roast it, plus it frees up gold better. So it shows more like 250 grams per metric ton or parts per million with the fire assay, whereas the sulfides show about 150 parts per million via fire assay. So I say we shall see, but what that's doing is getting me plenty of solution to play games with resin. And it would be nice if I learned how to make the spot test work reliably on these solutions, because it becomes a whole lot faster and a whole lot cheaper to do the testing. For example, all the spot tests I did on the resin tests, what do we got? Almost 6. Well, I think that would have been about $900 worth of testing. Okay. Now, right now, those tests aren't terribly probative because nothing seems to be happening, but it should. I believe there's a higher probability that the spot test is getting interfered with and that none of those resins did anything. Okay. Seems unlikely to me. So we shall see what we shall see. Meantime, I've got samples to split and ship off to Hiddle tomorrow. I've got to go to the cardiologist tomorrow. I've got a lot of health things taking time or whatever, fitting it in between. And wouldn't be too bad except they really would like to have an answer as soon as possible. So I'm being pretty active trying to get these tests done as quickly as possible so that they have a an answer and can actually start doing something right away. They should have all the hardware they need with the exception of the stripping circuit. And I've come up with an idea how to do that theoretically could be shipped down there real easily, but most of the components might be better just to buy them off Amazon down there. Because by the time you start shipping internationally, life gets kind of weird. So it'd be better if we could just ship it down there directly. We shall see. None of this stuff should be terribly heavy. But the stripping circuit, again, in theory, 10% loading factor. I'm going to go with 5. Why? Because. Okay. So if we have 100 pounds divided by 4, 5, no, multiply 100 pounds times 454 equals 45 kilograms. 45 kilograms times, what would that be? Milligrams per kilogram, so 0.15. 6.75 grams per batch, somewhere around there. 6.5 divided by 0.05. So we're looking at a kilogram of 2. I've done some of that so far, Tempto, but I need to check that too to see how it affects. The one time I did using the OxyClean, it did seem to have a significant increase in recovery, and it's pretty simple. I mean, I just put the OxyClean in and let it run for an hour and a half, then through the Eco Gold X and did that.
Here's a headline you don't see often.
What?
Texas plumber sues Ford reseller for $1 after seeing his truck being driven by ISIS.
Wow. Anyhow.
Shit you don't expect to see.
So that's exactly the kind of things I want to figure out in the next 2 weeks so that we can maximize the recovery as soon as possible. I mean, for example, using the equipment they have and everything, let's suppose they take their 100 pounds of sulfide cons, throw it in the little mini ball mill, throw in some OxyClean, grind it for 2 hours, and then take that slurry, add Eco Gold X and agitate. Not in the ball mill because you don't want to beat up the resin beads, and go from there. So
yeah, I know, but it's just one of those things you don't expect to see making the rounds again.
So I say these are the sort of things that we don't want to figure out after we're already doing something. Do it on the lab scale first, figure out what seems to work the best, easiest, most reliably, and then scale it up for the actual mining operation. But the stripping circuit we have for these is specifically designed to use them in cartridges. Stripping circuit we would be using down there, they're not already in cartridges, so it would probably just be a heated solution with agitation Because the beads are heavier than water, we've done this before, you can actually stir it and the beads will only rise to a certain level depending on the vigorousness of the stirring. You could lose like a beaker. In the previous thing, we used a filtration flask and just made sure that none of the beads got high enough to come out the overflow. So anyhow, that's what I'm doing. I got lots to do. Eva's job right now is healing up, and then she'll be starting radiation in roughly a month, and that's going to take a lot of my time. But being able to do the laboratory experiments at home, it keeps my mind occupied and thinking of other stuff. So that's a good thing.
So it's going to take you driving me there every day and waiting.
I just realized we didn't get the liver out of the freezer.
Yeah, we got to get the liver out.
So,
you have to get the liver out.
yeah, I can thaw it out under hot water. But anyhow, still trying to build up my iron in my blood here, all the leakage. So that's what's going on, and hopefully by the time we're done, we'll have a system that anyone could theoretically duplicate, assuming the chemistry works your ore. And I'm also showing you how to check to see whether the chemistry works on your ore. Okay. So, that's what's going on here. Not sure what time it is now. It's been 45 minutes. Anyone got any questions or subjects they'd like to discuss at this point? Yeah, but it's not bioavailable, honey bunny. Looks like Lauren's going to have a fairly busy winter doing stuff for the mining companies and such. And Rock may or may not head down to Central America for a short period of time to do his geology magic on that stuff. And Lauren may or may not go down to Central America for a short time. Well, yeah, I tried chlorine though, and it didn't work very well. I understand that, but guess what? The recovery was more in the neighborhood of 10 or 20%. Now, could I improve it? Maybe. Do I have time to worry about it? Not at the moment. Now I'm under time pressure of actually getting something implemented in the field working ASAP. I don't have time to do basic research at the moment. Will I get back to it? Sure. I'll be doing some testing, but yeah, it's just one of those deals where right now, nope, we got to go for what we can make work quick. Huh, iron chloride would kill you, huh? Okay. Wasn't planning on testing that theory out. I don't mind liver. Liver and onions is good. Although Eva said that kidneys are also a good source of. Yeah, it could be, Gene. Again, I don't have time to experiment with. Could be's. I know that the Eco Goldex got me good recoveries before. Now I just need to make sure I can do that reliably and reasonably optimally. And then how do I get the gold out of the Eco Goldex? But anyhow, as I said, Eva found out kidneys supposed to be. Now My ex-wife used to make a nice kidney gravy that went well over mashed potatoes. Of course, we can't do mashed potatoes now because it's got carbohydrates. But Eva suggested cauliflower rice. Like, that might work. Well, I'll see.
So would the kohlrabi probably.
Okay, take care, Paul. I say we shall see that.
I want you getting your iron.
Yeah. We went to the doctor today. They just stuck my arm to get a test for was it total iron plus the complete blood count.
Yeah. Do you happen to know whether they did ferritin?
I have no clue. So I have no idea exactly what it is. They're looking for the iron level in the blood plus a complete blood count. And we shall see.
You normally have nice, healthy, adequate gut.
Yeah, well, I was leaking a lot.
I'm actually turning up. My last couple of blood tests, I started back.
Huh. Need D2 injection. Okay. I said the doctor, ordered the test. They took the blood today. Haven't gotten any results back yet. I presume I will in a day or two. Then I got to go to the cardiologist tomorrow, and I've got a sleep study on Thursday. So we're working the issue briskly. Still leaves me plenty of time at home to do these tests. But yeah, the idea of using a little, having kidney gravy.
Yeah, if you can find a kidney for sale anywhere these days, that's safe.
That's true.
I haven't seen kidneys lately.
Huh.
Yeah.
Point.
I mean, we're seeing tongue for $15 a freaking pound. You believe that shit, people?
That's pretty bizarre. I remember when I was in...
Chicken livers are like over $2 a pound. Gizzards are over $2 a pound.
When I was in college, steaks were running like a little over $2 a pound, and I was buying beef heart at 25 cents a pound because it's like pure protein.
Yeah, but you can't find beef heart anymore. You haven't seen that in stores either.
Yeah.
Just don't like chicken. Don't have 19 billion ethics.
Well, I think in this sleep study, I'm supposed to wear a complete mask so that they can monitor exactly how I'm breathing the whole night. I could probably pull it off. I did a lot of skin diving and such, so a mask doesn't bother me too much. But we shall see. Right now, they had me on supplemental oxygen at night, kind of as a precaution. When I went into the hospital, when was that? Last week, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. When I went to the hospital, they found a couple of times my oxygen got a little bit low at night. So I now got one of those oxygen generators.
They've now got you taking too much blood pressure.
Yeah, my blood pressure's down now, so we need to adjust that to where I'm not wobbly. Nice thing, I've got an oxygen generator now, so I can run a hose to the lab.
No. Oxygen generator is not.
Or a work for it. I'm not sure. Does anyone know what percentage oxygen comes off of one of those oxygen concentrators? I just really don't have any idea. One would think it's heavily enriched, but that's my thought. Now, the only thing is they don't have a port for the nitrogen. That could come in handy too. So we shall see what we shall see. Eva's intuition is saying that the roasted cons are going to work better than the unroasted cons. One thing I did find out today was the roasted cons were somewhat more acidic than the unroasted cons, but the unroasted cons dissolved a lot more total dissolved solids than the roasted ones did. $60 to 95%. Okay, that's not bad. So, anyhow, it's interesting that the unroasted cons are so much more soluble. You know, the acidity of the roasted con makes sense to me because now instead of sulfides, you got sulfate. Be my guess. But it was surprising to me that I had, I mean, in terms of less total dissolved solids, like 300 parts per million as opposed to 15,000 parts per million. Huge difference. And that also might be part of the problem, that the gold may not load because something else may be in that solution that just saturates the resin before it has time to grab the gold. I don't know. Yeah, that's what I got when I sleep, Gene, is a cannula. Doesn't seem to bother me too much. I can go to sleep pretty easy and it doesn't wake me up. I'm dreading the night that I wake up and start walking away and find out suddenly and abruptly that yeah, the cannula is still attached to my head. I just am afraid that's going to happen some night. So far it hasn't. We shall see. Anyhow, but yeah, it's interesting that the roasted cons have orders of magnitude lower readings on the total dissolved solids on the meter than the unroasted con. So we shall see. That's what I'm doing right now, is testing all this crap out. And I say we shall see. I wouldn't think you have a whole lot of soluble metallic compound when you've got a lot of hydroxide. But who knows? And that may be it. I may just need to do a hydroxide precipitation. I have no clue. But using the previously extant pregnant solution, it was showing a lot on the spot test. No matter what I did, no matter what resin or whatever, it showed a lot on the spot test. And so is that an interference with the spot test? Is that an interference with resin? The resin itself, I mean, it doesn't seem to be loading a whole lot more than the, good stuff. That dark color
Question:
is what we load in at the mill. What?
the light stuff, was that from roasted cons or unroasted?
That would be unroasted con. It was previous pregnant solution I had collected over.
Okay. Well, the reason I asked is because I always theorized that our resin that we loaded out at our mill was such a dark red because it had so much iron. It had picked up the water out there was iron rich, and the ore, of course, was running 30% iron. That was why I.
Yeah, I really don't know what's going on. I am not a chemist, and so I pretty much observe what happens. If it's good enough, I don't worry too much about it. If it's not, then I have to learn more and figure out what's going on. Tomorrow evening, I should have a lot more idea of what happened with these resins? Did it actually grab the gold out of solution and leave a bunch of other crap in there or not? As a matter of fact, um, talk to them just a minute, little one. I'm going to test total dissolved solids in the stuff I use.
Hi, everybody. I'm not getting on camera because I look like the Bride of Frankenstein. Y'all can cope. So anyway, Monty now weighs 180 grams. Little dude is putting on weight. I am a happy, happy camper. And you may have noticed that silver and gold are still on sale. It's absolutely ridiculous how on sale silver and gold are at the moment. So this would be a really good time to buy plenty. You know. Hi, honey bunny. Hi, Mr. Birchie. But yeah, I still have the staples in my neck, so I am not being seen in public, and the nerve damage means that the slightest breeze or anything touching my face is really absolutely horrible. No, he's a ball python. He's never going to get above like 5 or 6 pounds. Now, I wouldn't mind having a Burmese or a chick, except that they're a real hassle to deal with. They're too big. No, I don't want. I don't like these staples. I don't like the nerve damage I've got from the operations, but there's really not much you can do about that, you know. That's just the way things are. Silver and gold are still on sale. Eggs are still falling in value for the moment. Beef is getting a little bit sketchy. But for those who may have heard the latest kerfluffle, we now have agitprop running around saying that President Trump is selling out the beef industry in the United States. Are you kidding, Mr. Virtue? Having a mask touch my face right now would just about drive me up a tree. It hurts when the breeze blows on it. It's numb, okay? It's numb, but the referred pain in my eye is horrible when shit touches this. I have crazy nerve damage going on. But anyway, the agitprop are saying that Trump went and sold out the beef industry because he's allowing imports from Argentina. When you look at what's actually going on, the beef people in the Department of Agriculture have freed up a bunch of grant money that is going to be going to beef producers to get more people into beef ranching. They're also cutting through regulations to make it easier for ranchers to lease public lands so that we can increase our beef herd. And at the same time, they're going to be enforcing the place of origin labeling on beef so you know what comes in from out of the country. And the reason that they're allowing these imports from Argentina is to help Argentina. You know, Milei just got reelected. And also because at least Argentina doesn't have the flesh-eating slug thing or problem there.
Fly.
Yeah. And yeah, the prices have not improved for over 45 years. But our herds are at an all-time low right now. It's going to take 2 years. Well, realistically, it takes 19 months to increase the overall herd size to begin with. So what we're trying to do, those of us who yell and scream about public policy and the lobbyists, are using this along with the people in the agriculture department to set up a transition period so that ranchers have access to the funds they need to build their herds up and to encourage the infrastructure for production and processing and distribution to be enlarged again. Because I'm sure some of you noticed during that whole COVID bullshit, we found out all of a sudden that there's only like 3 processing hubs for beef, for produce in, you know, in the first place. And they're all owned by foreign interests. Bizarre how that happens.
Shocking.
Absolutely. It created, and it can create artificial bottlenecks. So one of the things that they're trying to do here locally in Montana is they're trying to train up more butchers and get more processing going on, because as we enlarge herd size, we also need to enlarge the processing and distribution ecosystem so that we can tell these foreign interests, Arab and Chinese, honey bunny, half of it's Arab owned. A significant proportion is drug cartel owned, and the rest is split between Chinese and Arab. It's ridiculous. But if we can increase our processing ecosystem, then we can tell these foreign interests, you either sell your interest to America and GTFO, or we're just not going to use you anymore, and you can GTFO and lose all your money, asshole. It is time to take back our critical infrastructure. We have no critical infrastructure left in the country.
Food critical infrastructure?
It should be.
My goodness. What is the concept?
It probably isn't, but it should be. As far as our globalist asshats are concerned. What?
Okay, well, what I did was I frolicked on back to the lab, and I tested the remaining amount of the pregnant solution that I used, and it was running 11,800 parts per million total dissolved solids according to the meter. And the barren solution was running about 11,400 parts per million dissolved solids, which, when you do the math, runs out to about 0.2 grams of stuff missing, which should have pretty well loaded that resin. So, don't know what loaded the resin, but it seems plausible that something loaded it out of there. I don't know. I only care about gold. Well, sometimes silver. But yeah. I'll figure it out. It'll take a little bit of time. We shall find out. Oh, it could cost the boys a bit of money, all this lab testing. So, anyhow, that's what's up here. Again, any questions, subjects, or anything like that to bring up that we can chat about? I hope everyone is enjoying and learning from my adventures in the lab here. Trying to synopsize it and make it understandable so that someone could basically duplicate the process if needed without too much trouble. We'll continue to watch the sport. Just wait a minute, honey bunny. Not really making shorts that I'm aware of. I mean, they're relatively short videos, 5, 10 minutes, that sort of thing. But they're not a typical short, according to YouTube. Are you seeing actual formatted short, according to YouTube, or is it just they're short videos? Because they are. So that's the question. Oh, okay. Okay, that makes sense. Well, I don't see any other questions or subjects coming up, so we'll give it a second call. Any questions or subjects that anyone needs answers or input on? I care about value, Kodak, John. The I don't have any problem with silver, but because of its low value, you kind of have to go about it a little bit different. You know, like with this leaching, you're going to need 100 times as much resin to make it work, sort of thing. You almost got to go about it differently because of that. I don't care if I'm found. I really like native silver. I knew a gentleman a while back that had some native silver. Mexico. It's beautiful stuff, gorgeous. That's not bad. The goats will be happy, honey bunny. Is that new hurricane headed in your general direction? I know it's planning to smash Jamaica hard, but I didn't look at the long-term path there, so I'm not sure. Anyhow, I'm pretty focused right now on this particular challenge, getting this stuff working. We shall see. Thank you, Mr. Virtue. Okay. Yeah.
Well, good night, everybody.
Yeah. Go ahead and post it, honey bunny. So, say Eva is healing up right now. She seems to be doing okay. And we'll keep you informed. Actually, alfalfa's not bad for bunnies, John. A lot better than lettuce. Lettuce is rough on them. Okay.
Good
Happy
night,
prospecting
everybody.
and